And there's nobody here. Really? There's nobody here? Did I write the right? Did I click the right one? Classics 170. Oh. Okay, well, let's take attendance. This will be fun. It's early. If you can't come to class, please email me so that I don't have this like lousy surprise when I get here and there's nobody here. Kind of demoralizing, honestly.
I'm not interested in every class.
What?
I'm not in every class.
Yes, next Thursday.
Yeah, well, you know
Why?
because I got lost on I-75 with my friends.
It's a straight road.
Yeah, so you get lost. I get lost. They were arguing, so I-75, I'm like, oh, this is south. It was not south.
Is Trinity here? Is Marcus here? Is Olivia? I saw Olivia this morning. Oh my gosh. Abigail is here. That's good. Sam Gerard.
I saw some.
What happened to all these people? Anna Joy is here. And Lisa, I heard from. That's one person that I heard from. Whitley. He even saw it this morning.
Whitley was in my psychology class this morning too.
What's this? We're all in the right place, right? Isn't this what class is supposed to be? You guys, we all came here at the same time. It must be right. Great is this. I had to go recruiting to the New York perspective of things. And I taught somebody else's class at 8, and I knew I was teaching 10, 11, 12. I was all recruited for an hour. So I was eating the same. 5 till and all of that. So Brandon's here, Maddie is here, Sabrina. Sabrina said she was going to be on Zoom. Hey Sabrina, are you on Zoom? She just emailed me and told me she was going to be on Zoom. Maybe she's having the same problem that Connor was having.
I had that issue the first time, but it was because I have a Chromebook and it doesn't automatically support the link unless you download the app.
Oh.
Yeah, it's really weird. I had the same issue with my creative writing class.
Allie is Elijah Stone. Lily. Sorry. Hi Lily. Riley is not here. Melanie is here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 6, 7, 8. We have less than So, we read some of the Odyssey today. We'll read some of the Odyssey next time. I don't really see much point in calling balls and so we'll put that aside. We've got a lot of stuff to get through to get us caught back up, and that's why I'm here, even though I can't talk. Presumably they were worse off than I am. That's what I was going to say. So last time we got through book 4, right? So today we're technically doing 5 through 9. I think if I'm creative about that, we can I can summarize a little bit, and then we can get to the more recent stuff. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys all the reads on annotations, and they're going to be better than you deserve. But please show me your annotations, and I can give you some encouragement and feedback, and then I'm going to write down A because you showed up today. Okay? A little bit. I'm just going to so. Show that's good. I'll say the same thing that I said to other people, right? Do what works. Oh, no, I like you to write, it's just, writing and highlighting, it's kind of hard on the highlighter, it's kind of hard to read, but do it. Show it up. Yeah. 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 The very showed up, and I lost one. When it's pretty road. Yeah, good highlighting, a little bit more writing to sort of summarize or label things, both sort of help processing to make it useful for you later on, because we're gonna write a paper on this stuff. And your book needs to be a useful tool for you. So, yeah. Yeah. Give you like an all right, so here's what we can do because we've got so much to catch up with. Let's just put up on the board what each book covers. So we can move like summary through, at least book 5. Because it's been a while since we read book 5 for the first time. What happens in book 5?
All the doors were decided, gathered together.
Great, Council of the Gods, keep going.
Odysseus leaves Bloodstone.
Yeah, there we go. Get out of here. Hermes comes down and takes him off the island. Says, "Where's he going?" OD on Ogygia is the name of her island. Leaves. What happens in book 6?
No, the daughter.
Did I have it in book 6?
Yeah, Nausicaa.
Yeah, okay. So the storm happens in book 5 then. Storm. Book 6. Nausicaa on beach. And we open with Athena sending her this dream that she needs to go down. And we close with her having given him hospitality and then moving along towards the city. What happens in book 7? Right, meets the king and queen. What's the king's name? Alcinous. What's the queen's name? Arene. Her name means excellent. And Arene for Xenia. Yes, for Xenia, but yes, for hospitality. The way in which she does that is going to turn out to be really, really important when we get to the second half of the poem. You see several times in these books we did today, mention about, and they gave them a cloak and tunic. Tunic and cloak. Down the shore, Nausicaa gives them a tunic and cloak. Back at the palace, it's like, oh, that's a nice tunic and cloak you're wearing, and they give them more tunics and cloaks. Pay attention to the phrase tunic and cloak, because it's going to show up a lot more in the second half of the poem in ways that are going to be really funny if you're paying attention to it. This is one element of Xenia, right? If your guest isn't dressed right, or like is in dire hardship, you can give him new clothes. Not always possible, as we'll see later on. So book 7 asks Alcinous and Arene for Xenia. What about book 8?
And they have that part of the
Feast and contests. And in book 9, wandering. Finally, in book 9, we're in the part that you guys have associated with the Odyssey. Right? Is that what you read the Odyssey? Is that great? Yeah. So the part that you probably read is books 9, 10, 11, 12. Maybe a little bit more, probably a little bit less. These are the parts that you think about as the Odyssey, and it turns out they're very good. These are the fantastical elements. These are the parts that we all really love, but they're not the main narrative of the poem. This is stuff that Odysseus tells by way of flashback, storytelling, about his past. After he finally opened up to Syria. Are the stories that he tells about his past believable in the same way that the rest of the poem is believable? Do they feel like or unlike the rest of the poem to you? We put it a different way. Are they realistic in the way that we mean the word realistic? No. Is mostly the rest of the poem realistic in the way that we mean? Anybody ever read the Iliad? The Iliad is also realistic in the way that we mean. Homer is a modern poet in his day. He's telling his stories for an audience with expectations of realism. The story about Odysseus, though, is a story, it's a fairy story. It's a story about wanderings and the monsters are like giants and things that are not realistic. So how do you tell a story like that? How do you talk about Odysseus? The main feature of whose story is all of this fantastic stuff, without breaking the rules of realism. Because Homer evidently observes realism as a convention. What did he do to make this okay? How does the telling of these stories make it less unrealistic? No?
like, I guess I'm concerned with this, you're asking why the poem is seeming unrealistic or why it's seeming.
So all of a sudden it seems, so the realism is normal. The whole Iliad is realistic. And everything outside of these 4 books, basically realistic. You gotta let gods exist. But you don't have to let monsters, fantasy stuff exist. So these 4 are different. What did Homer do here to make it okay that he breaks the rules? Is this told in the narrator's voice? Whose voice is it told by? What do we know about Odysseus? Yeah?
And lies.
He introduces himself in this way too. When he introduces, well, of course that's a lie. He lies to bother himself. That's not a big deal. But when he introduces himself to Alcinous in book 9, this is basically the chief feature of his self-introduction. This is on page, it's around line 20. I am Odysseus, Laertes' son, known for my many clever tricks and lies. Like that makes sense to have. The Greek here, posse deloiser, all my tricks. So when he very first starts telling this story, he tells you, I am Odysseus, the famous liar. Now I'm going to tell you a story. And this goes by unnoticed too often. That the poem is all of it basically realistic, except for the stories told by a liar in the middle. And that seems to be the way that Homer decided to deal with this material. Without breaking his own conventions and the expectations of the audience that he be realistic. So it's very, from my mind, it's pretty. We're gonna have 4 books of wanderings, 9, 10, 11, 12. Each one, 11 is a thing apart. 11 is the is an account of the other. But 9, 10, 12 are each 3 stories. 2 small followed by 1 large. So that is the convention that he observes in these books. What are the 2 small stories that we hear about in book 9? Cyclops is the big one, of course. Which are the small ones that start us out? There's those cones, the cones in the first one. And they're really normal. The story of the Cicones is we were coming back from a war, we stopped, we raided this country. They ran us off and we kept going. It's pretty cool. What came after the Cicones? Oh,
The locust.
locust eaters, yeah. Oops. Lotus leaves, sorry, it's not bugs, they eat plants. Lotuses, not locusts. Lotus, and I was about to write Easters. Tell me about the lotus eaters. You tell me about the lotus eaters. No, did you find out? What happens in the life of the lotus eaters? What happens?
They share with them delicious food, and then they also come back to the home.
They do what lots of people in the Odyssey do. They forget about their nostos. Word nostos, N-O-S-T-O-S, is function. We heard it already at the very beginning of the poem, when we heard that he tried really hard to bring his companions home, but they were reckless and they lost their nostos. Okay. What happens with the island of the lotus eaters is that people eat the fruit of the lotus. Zen out. It's what?
The Lotus Casino.
More modern, it's like they trap them in there.
Casino's good, right? But the thing there is that the defining feature of it is that it sort of.
They don't
It's not
realize,
so much a trap, it's that it traps your brain,
they don't realize how long they've
right?
been there. And doing that.
So can you think of a phenomenon in the modern world, other than casinos, right? The people who get in the casino, the kind of trained zombies. In the modern world. The specific description of this. A lot of people have felt that this sounds like something very specific. The scouts, this is line 91 on page, in book 9. The scouts encountered humans, lotus eaters, who did not hurt them. They just shared with them their sweet, delicious fruit. As they ate it, they lost the will to come back and bring news. They only wanted to stay there, eating on lotus with the lotus eaters. They had forgotten to home. To a lot of people, this sounds a lot like heroin. For opioids, right? That you sort of lose your will to do daily life. That's not to say that this is really about eating poppies instead of eating lotuses. This is a story, it's a fairy story. This is something in these days that we can think of in kind of a spooky. I used to live in a neighborhood where the guy across the street from me was evidently selling heroin or something, pills out of his house. And the guys that would sit around waiting for him to come home just pass out. Pass out on the porch. Different neighborhood, nice neighborhood. Somebody passed out behind the wheel of their car and drove into my friend's house. Because that's the thing that happens to you. Anyway, so our two stories here are the Cicones and the Lotus Eaters, and then we get the Cyclops as a story. So we're going to go 25 minutes. I want to circle back and deal briefly with 5, 6, 7, 8, because the thing that I want you to understand really well before we leave is the Cyclops. So book 5, Calypso is holding. Fine. Yeah. I want Calypso to let him go.
She wanted to.
What a first thing to do. Lily.
She wanted to.
Yeah. She loves him, she wants to keep him. She wants him to stay and be her husband.
Similar thing happened where another year.
No.
I remember hearing about it, and her just being praised that everyone, the heroes come to her, she falls in love with them.
I don't think that the Greek canon has other stories about Calypso. I think that Calypso was made up by Homer for the Odyssey. Her name means inconceivable. So she's got one of these names that suggests that she was invented for this role. That's not to say that other people later haven't used her that way. That may be what you're thinking. It's perfectly likely that Percy Jackson sort of lists her in that kind of way, for example. But she falls in love with him. She wants to keep him. Does he want to stay? She offers him immortality. Why does he not want to stay?
He actually wants to fly. And even if he were to stay with her for 8 years.
Oh, forever. He wants to stay forever. She wants him to stay.
But he'd rather go home to his wife than go home and not stay.
He loves his family. This is his primary motivation. What he is fighting is the forgetfulness of his home. There are two basic threats. I ask you a question and ask you to formulate this. There are two basic threats in the Odyssey. Destruction, like actual death by monsters or by hostile people. But the bigger threat is forgetfulness. And Odysseus is remarkable for his ability to outwit monsters and enemies and things like that, but he's most remarkable for his endurance of soul, for his ability to stay committed to his homecoming, despite all of these very many obstacles. Many of these obstacles are sexual temptation. Right? Just to list a few, there's Calypso wants to make him immortal. Later on, there's Circe that he stays with and sleeps with for a year. He could have stayed there if he wanted to. There's Nausicaa, whose dad wants her to marry him. There's another one. Those are the big ones. Oh, well, there's the Sirens. The Sirens are women with a sort of enchanting voice They're usually read as a sort of symbol of this kind of temptation. So all of these are threats to his dedication. They're tests of his endurance and his ability to endure pain, both emotional and physical pain. He gets off in Mogaija in book 6, and it costs him dearly, right? There's a terrible storm. He's wrecked and floats on the sea for many, many days. More days than I think I could hold on to a scrapbook. And I think that's the point. That it's a demonstration of his grit and his ability to persevere. So book 6 is about Nausicaa, and it's a charming little book. It's one of my favorites. Athena appears to Nausicaa. Who's Nausicaa? Great. Yeah, she's a princess. She's Alcinous's daughter. She's the princess of Scria. Why is she at the beach? Go do your laundry. It's important. Don't you want a husband? Go clean. Do your laundry. So she goes down. What Athena's motive here was obviously that she wants her there to help Odysseus. And there's a lot of really fun, fascinating sort of interplay between the two of them. First, I'll ask this. Allie, if you and some other friends your age were at beach or a creek, something like that, and we're skinny, and a bearded, crunchy, naked man came out of bushes, would you react to that?
I probably run away.
That's a very reasonable reaction. The poem is fully confident that every Greek unmarried girl would run away from this. There's the obvious sort of physical threat, right? They've been bathing and naked, and now this creepy naked guy's coming at them. There's a threat of violence or sexual violence. There's also a threat of loss of reputation, which is a really important threat that she's clearly worried about later on as well. The exchange between Odysseus and Nausicaa is fascinating because of the ways that he overcomes this threat and because of her extraordinary bravery to stay there and talk with this creature. And you can see it as a kind of bravery. She does all of the things that an adult should do, including extending hospitality to the stranger. Just really brief, because this is one of my favorite parts of the poem. Line 150 or so is the beginning of Odysseus's speech to her. And when Odysseus appears, the poem describes him as like a mountain lion, which definitely adds to your sense of impending threat. So how does Odysseus overcome his bad situation and get her to help him?
As a flirt.
Okay, put some paint to that. What do you mean exactly? I think that'll work, but tell me what you mean exactly.
He says like basically like the prettiest girl I've ever seen, like makes her feel comfortable that she's not sexualizing her, but like flirting in the sense she likes.
So this is the trick, right? It's a non-sexual flirtation. that subtracts from his sexual threat instead of adding to it. Because if the creepy, back to you because you were imagining yourself in this situation, if the creepy bearded guy who's just come up from a shipwreck, if he started hitting on you, would that make you more likely to stay? What is he doing if he's not hitting on you? Let's be more specific on the way that we describe this. You said flirting with her. Can anybody respond when they were describing a little bit? Go on.
Like about her, the way she looks, like comparing her to a goddess, that's more of a compliment than flirting.
And definitely the compliment at the beginning is designed to disarm her. And it says that he has a plan, so he's thinking of this stuff. What in particular does he want her to think? I don't think that. I think that's part of the come on. And it's calculated. What is it calculated to do? Right? That's what she wants him to do, but what does she want him to think that he wants to do? Why?
Like, she wants to just, like, he wants to just see him as a partner, not like.
Yes. This is very important to the dynamics between Odysseus and Nausicaa and her whole family. He needs to be an undercover prince instead of a scraggly dude. He needs to be marriageable. What does that circle back to that we already saw earlier in this book? Why is she already thinking about marriageability? The end of what? The what? The dream. When Athena, whose object is to help Odysseus, comes down and says, hey, don't you want to get married? Go do some laundry and you'll be able to get married one day. And then out of the bushes crawls a suitor, kind of, who's complimenting her. This is actually really a delicate line. Because what is the number 2 threat for his homecoming? To get stuck here. Right? Forgetting your homecoming is really easy to do. He could very easily marry her and stay. And he wants her to think about that possibility. But he also wants her dad to send him home. And so he's walking this very fine line. And everything that he says is calculated to suggest without promising. And if you come at it with that understanding, this is a really fascinating thing. I love reading this because the sexual dynamics, the sort of tension in the air, there's a lot of it, and it's really finely controlled. And this is what he does in every situation. This is how Homer shows his wiles. You think of the no-man trick. Right? That's the famous way that he shows his cleverness. But it's even better demonstrated in just his conversations with people. And the way that he manipulates people to get the things that he wants and needs without harming them. He's a really tricksy guy. I don't know if I would like him very much at all. But he's very, very good. Page line 180. He says to her in his speech, may the gods grant all your heart's desire, a home and a husband, somebody like like-minded. We talked about like-mindedness after both him and his wife. Nothing could be better than when they two live in one house, their minds in harmony, husband and wife. Nothing's better than a husband. Their enemies are jealous, their friends are delighted, etc. So after this, she shows him good city. He goes to the palace in book 7. He grabs he grabs the queen's knees. It's a gesture of ritual supplication. He grabs some of these knees and you made them yourself or something. They have to help you. Is it clear right away that Alcinous and Arete will help him? Or is there a hard second where you're not sure?
There was some.
They sure were. Met their daughter's great, they seemed really nice to the daughter. But when strangers get there, they're hesitant. Finally, it's one of the figures that pops up and says, this is the right way to treat a guest. And after that, also is all that he. But Homer is playing the tension really well. There's one big thing that Homer needs, that Odysseus needs to keep in his bag. What god are the Phaeacians really close to? Who is the water god?
I can't say.
Oh,
his
come
name.
on, somebody, who's the water god?
Poseidon.
Poseidon is the god that they're closest to. How is Odysseus' relationship with Poseidon? They have a legitimate reason, they knew who he was, to tell him to go home. And in fact, we learn later on that Poseidon has threatened, A, Poseidon doesn't like it when they give people taxi service all around the Mediterranean. B, Poseidon someday will wreck one of their ships on the way home because he's mad at them and hide their island with a mountain. Unclear whether that means on top of their city or in front of their city. Either way, it's a bad deal. So Odysseus has to win their respect and affection without letting his heart out. You remember we talked about Xenia? We talked about what are the requirements of Xenia? This is going to get us to the Cyclops too. Xenia, the guest-host relationship. What do they require most? Being maiden, good. What else? Don't ask. Why not? What if you don't like them? Not liking them is not supposed to affect this, but we're people. And then finally, what are you supposed to give them? Yes. The story of Odysseus and Alcinous does a fantastic job illustrating this. Alcinous has a reason to refuse hospitality to Odysseus in his whole story. But by the time he finds out the whole story, because Odysseus has drawn it out so expertly, they've already dined together. He's already given them gifts. And he's just about ready to go. And then you get it. So you got 8 minutes. Let's talk about politics. How many of you had not heard some version of the story before? Good. Okay, so we got all the basics on the tape. I'm not going to go over the basics. So there's a monster. He has one eye. He eats people. Odysseus and then going to the cave. He closes the door. He eats some of it. They poke out his eye. They escape. So that's the fairy tale version of the story. The Odyssey's version of the story is a lot more interesting than the fairy tale version of the story. Because it engages with the poem's themes. And the poem's themes are Xenia, among others. does Zenith plan to store the pollens? And
My thing, we're gonna be there. Like they, if you get some drunk with the way he words it, before he's like, I'm gonna give you a gift, you know.
so
Yes.
part of it is, after he's already beaten up on him, he sort of taunts him by saying, oh, I'll give you a guest gift. Why are they even lined up in Cyclops' cave instead of just stealing the milk and cheese and eating it? Because Odysseus wants gifts. He wants to see if this is the kind of guy that will give him gifts. This gifts are a good way to get rich. You're on your way home, you're a famous guy, you just sang twice, it's not gonna get rich. It's a reasonable expectation because everybody respects the gods, and the gods say you have to treat guests kind. Great, what's the problem here? Why doesn't that work?
Cyclops, the Dominicans are.
Yeah, I don't care about the stupid gods. I am stronger than they. So the Cyclopes are in this peculiar situation where they don't have to respect one more. The entire episode plays out as a travesty of Zenith. A travesty is where you take something and turn it on its head. And so he expects that he'll go there, they'll get entertained, give him gifts, and go away. Instead, he's not entertained, the man doesn't fear the gods. What does Polyphemus ask him right away? What should you not ask a guest right away? Yes. Where are you from? Where's the rest of your ship? And ask him right away. Odysseus stalls, and eventually he tells him that his name is no man. Greek Utis. It's a synonym with Greek matis, which also means carver. But Utis also sounds like a name. It's really close to Otis, which is a Greek name. So he says that his name is this weird version of Otis, which means no man. This is the humor in this book, where they get the Cyclops drunk, they blind him, and when he calls out for help from the other Cyclopes, he is shouting, "Help! Nobody is killing me. Nobody has stabbed me in the eye." And the other Cyclopes saying, "Good, go back to sleep, damn it." It's a very funny passage if you're open to the humor in it. They get out in the end by smuggling themselves out under some sheep. And they tie themselves to the underside of some sheep. Get out that way. Do they get away clean? Probably. No, why not? What happens? Tell me what happens. What happens after they get away? Now they're sad, right? What happens after they get away?
Odysseus keeps talking Cyclops.
This dumb asshole shouts at the ogre that they just got away from and said, "Hey, ogre, I just got away from you. You're a stupid turd." And then the ogre throws a giant ogre at them and almost hits them. So they roll really hard. They get farther away, and what's Odysseus do, great? "Hey, you stupid turd! My name's Odysseus!" How did that work out for him? What happened? Because he knew his name, the book goes. You couldn't do that if you didn't. This is the most obvious mistake that Odysseus makes in the entire poem. After this, in the wanderings, he is basically flawless. But this is a pretty bad mistake. And he gets several of his men killed on the way in by trying to get Xenia. And then almost gets them killed on the way out. And all of this adds up to his desire for fame, kleos, which is entirely reasonable because that is what the Iliad is about. That is what archaic Greek society is about. It's about fame, kleos. Odysseus at the beginning of the wandering story is a normal Greek hero who wants fame. And this story in book 9 changes. From here on out, he has to be somebody who's single-mindedly determined to get home and to do it through tricks and stealth. And this is exactly what a Homeric hero would not do. Because it does not increase your fame and your glory. Sneaking around is the opposite of heroic behavior. But it's the only way that he's going to get home. And this episode here is his conclusion. We're out of time officially. Nobody has come to the Zoom room. I don't know what's going on. What? One other person you know.
I think Trinity was supposed to
If you see any of them, tell them that it looked very, it was a bad look.
be. You should tell them that we all got 100 on our test.